Kind of set up how this puppy works, okay? Because you're going to see how gorgeous this system will actually be. And again, it's not about being fair. So let me just set you up with two different banks. Now, there is a bank in my town called Regent Bank. It's a Christian bank that I love this bank. And in 2020, God told me to do it. In January of 2020, told me to move to this bank. I had no idea. And as March timeframe was coming around, I was trying to get in the PPP loans. And then I had to give them a lot more information than normally would have to give later on. But you have to set up this thing. So let's just say Scott has a $100,000 loan here, okay? But I also have $10,000 in savings as well. Great. On this side, let's say for the heck of it, I got Chase Bank over here. And on this side, we have a $100,000 loan. And I also have a $10,000 in savings here. Okay. So, how does this set up? First off, the Fed is up here on top. The Fed decides that all of the banks must use compound interest for their process of loans. Now, I put a little dotted line here because they have to have the Fed hold the big debts. And frankly, they just go ahead and let them hold almost every debt. So they're always in line to this system. And let me explain something here that's fascinating that you don't really understand. There was a process, and this is probably about 10 years ago. Chris Paul played for Houston. Now, Houston actually had a trade with the LA Lakers to trade Chris Paul over to LA. No, this is a contract, okay? When they set up a trade, this is two like parties, this is contractual law, two like parties have made a choice to accomplish a trade. And actually, Chris Paul was loving it because he wanted to play for the Lakers. But here's what happened. The NBA came in and nixed the deal all the way through. And you're going, how did they get to nix it? It's because they're the governing body. Okay? Did you catch that point? Two contracts here, but the governing body is the NBA. Let's go backward here for a second so you understand the depth of the process here. The governing body is the Fed over the small bank here. So they have to do it the way the Fed claims it. Okay? Now, on the other side of the case here, we have Chase Bank. But by the way, they're the same idiots. Chase Bank is on the board of the Fed, okay? There's 13 bankers out there, and they're on the board. They're doing the same thing. Now, on the bottom of the screen, what I want you to realize is that how the white hats are actually doing this. Sorry. What the white hats are doing is they have funds. They have funds from the cabal, okay? And part of it is the St. Germain Fund and the Rodriguez Fund. What you don't understand is that some of these funds have anywhere from one with 45 zeros on the end of it, and there's another one that has one with 40 zeros on the end of it to accomplish the numbers that they need. And they took this partly from the cabal and partly from who I like to call the anti-cabal. These are the deep families who have money. So they're taking it from this, and how do they take that? Well, guess what? Trump actually created it through EO 13818. If you have crimes against humanity, You know what those are already. Crimes against humanity, I'm going to take your property, which means every kit and caboodle thing that you possibly have. See, when they say take your property, it is a statement of bankruptcy. Now watch how this works. So does the $100,000 loan have to be paid back to Chase Bank? No, because Scott's name is written on this and Chase Bank is written on this as well, okay? So Chase Bank is in there. But if these idiots are going through bankruptcy, okay, sorry I didn't spell it all the way out, but you get the point. If they're going through bankruptcy, their name will be just deleted off the loan because they don't get paid back. I mean, in bankruptcy, they just don't get anything back. So who has the property or the value of that particular contract? Scott. But because they're in bankruptcy or receivership, they do have to have, the white hats have to come in here and do a guarantee of this debt. This is why I'm trying to tell you, it isn't about fairness, it's about justice. And there is precedence for this whole thing to happen. So they don't have to come up with this because all they're going to do is wipe this thing out. Now they're going to tell Scott to go and say, do you want to take the money out in cash, or do you want us to transfer the money over to your other bank? And let's just say I go, yeah, transfer it over there. Great, we'll do it for you. Because they have to do it. Because you put estate people inside of this. And by the way, over the last 2 years, do you know that people who do get a check, a physical check, instead of it written by Trump, Obama, Bush, all the other people that come from the Treasury, which is when a Treasury check comes through, like your IRS thing, it usually is written by the president. But ever since idiot Biden has been involved, here's what happens. It's a bankruptcy specialist for the Treasury. A bankruptcy specialist for the Treasury is writing the thing because this whole thing is about bankruptcy. It's about that. And that's why it's dispensing. The white hats are dispensing out this thing. And you're going, would you please happen now? I understand. It's a process of killing them. Now, what do they have to do for Region Bank? Well, was Region Bank part of this sickness? Yes and no. They had no choice in the matter. They had to work with the Fed. So the white hats are going to go in here and pay off the loan. Now, the loan has Scott's information and it has Region Bank's signatures. Now, they always put a signatory upon the bank. Do you know what's funny about it? When you enter into a contract, okay, so my office, I have an audiology practice. The office itself of Hearing Solution doesn't write the contract. Contracts have to be of like parties. Okay? They have to be of like parties. Now, that's why Region can be in a contract with the Fed, and the Fed can be in with Chase or whatever, okay? Like parties, businesses to businesses, person to person, okay? Who has, what I do is, and this is the only legal way to do this, is that we only guarantee that contract when it's written by my audiologist, her licensed person. So she has to have liability underneath her, or my two audiologists at this time, or under me. It's under the person, not the business. That's how contracts are actually executed. What they do is they get a signatory from Region Bank to accomplish the loan, so that is why they do this. But it is a fraudulent point inside of the system. So these fraudulent ways that they have the system. But these guys have no choice in the matter. And they've had to do this way. So what happens is that they'll go in, the white hats are going to go in and pay off the loan. It takes the name of Region Bank off of it, and Scott owns the property. Now, in this way, they might say, you know, your debt has been canceled. I'm just making up a terminology with that they might say. Your debt is canceled over here. But on this side of the Region Bank point, They probably would say that your loan was paid off. Why? Because now Region Bank is $100,000 richer as a company. They don't have to deal with the $10,000 in savings because these guys are still in business. These idiots are going to go out of business. This is what my belief is. Therefore, all you had to guarantee is the $10,000 and the $100,000. You don't have to do the whole amount. I'm just sharing with you a possibility of how the system most probably will do it. Okay? Go on to our next slide here. I wanted to tell you something because this gets us back into this point, but it's in Romans 7:15 and then all the way through 8:2. Now there's passages I'm kind of skipping out there. For I do not understand what I'm doing, but I do not practice what I want to do, but I do what I hate. This is a little bit like that, okay? But sin is living within me. So I discovered this principle. I want to do good, but evil is within me. That sounds like stuff I have to deal with every day as my own self. But I see a different law, waging war. We're in a war. Waging war against the law of the mind, taking me prisoner to the law of sin. What a wretched man am I. Who can rescue me from this dying body? Therefore, there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, because the Spirit's law of life in Jesus has set you free from the law of sin and death. In essence, you have to see this biblical principle in a financial status as doing that. The white hats, through a process of bankruptcy that they've set up, is saying you had to live in this law of sin. This was the sin point, okay, that they did for you. But we're going to bring freedom inside of here. And you have to have freedom. And so he was talking about living in the spirit of law of life. When you move into the spirit of law of life, you don't have any more of that crud in the background because you have righteousness underneath you. That's why the Bible, you have to read the book of Romans. If you don't study the book of Romans, you won't catch these points. These are the depth teachings that I do a lot of times. If you really want to have more on that teaching structure, it's the Truth and Lies and What We Believe series. So Truth and Lies and What We Believe. So in the points related to the Romans 7 and 8, you cannot follow the old system of debt and rise out of it. I don't care what these idiots, I've talked to some truthers that kind of go off and say that only the interest is going to be paid off, but you're going to still have to pay the debts. Or they say you're going to have the debts and you get the interest back. It's not about fairness. It's not about fairness. You might say, well, I don't have any debt. Okay, good. Okay, good. We'll talk about that next week, how it actually will benefit you in the long run with that too. But I'm just telling you, you're not going to have, this is not a perfect system. Even if you had debt, you're like, well, I wish I'd gotten in it last week. I'd done the loan and, all this other, stop, okay? We're getting out of the old debt system, and you need to educate yourself about the old and the new system. The new principles work as we're moving from the fiat to the gold standard, valuing money, and you're going to work from it. You have to work with it. So you have to have no IRS taxation, but you're going to have sales tax.